And this is a love letter. I love letter not only to you, the present version of you, I love letter to the past version of you, and I love letter to the future version of you, because all of those versions of you are coexisting right now. And that's why I wanted to do this on V-Day, because I wanted to take the spirit and the essence of that day and harness that energy in this podcast. It's about love, all sorts of love. And what is the most beautiful type of love than the love we give to ourselves? The love that we allow to pour onto ourselves, and then allow that pouring into ourselves to overflow into others, and to overflow in the most beautiful way. And that's why today is the day where we kick off season 5 of the podcast. Have you ever felt like you were going through a season of your life where everything you've worked through and worked on was coming together in some sort of full circle moment? Have you ever felt like all of the quote unquote sacrifices you've made, all of the things you've been called to release and to shed, were suddenly making sense as to why it was important for you to let them go? That's the season in which I am right now. That's the season in which I am starting this season of the podcast. In today's episode, I'm going to give you an insight into what I've been up to. I'm going to share with you why I decided to rename my podcast, why I decided to bring it back and share with you a season of transformation and changing my life. I'm going to let you know what I've been up to, where am I living at now, and how are things going with my husband, and a few changes we've made to our family. This episode is for those of you that are yearning for the courage to step up to your life with the knowing that everything is unfolding in your favor, and with an appreciation for everything you've been called to let go, knowing deep down inside that everything you have thought was a quote-unquote sacrifice was not a sacrifice at all, because you were always designed to let those things go in order to create space for what your heart truly desires. Every single thing that you felt that you were sacrificing was actually a placeholder for the real transformation and the real gifts that God has been calling you to own, to embody, and to share with the world. Let's get started. Hola, mis amores, and welcome to the Yenory Pouncil Podcast. I'm your host, Yenory Pouncil. Today, I wanted to check in with you and do a catch-up on what I've been up to, what's been going on with me, and what you can expect from me this year as we co-create magic together. Before we get started, I want us to do a vibe check. So let's take a moment to take 3 deep breaths together so that we can center ourselves and get in tune with how we are feeling. Let's take a deep breath in, inhale, fill those lungs with air, and when you're at capacity, slowly exhale from the mouth. Inhale from your nose, and when you feel ready, exhale. One last time, inhale, and when you're ready, exhale. How are you feeling? How is your spirit today? That is a question that I am going to ask you every single time we find ourselves here on this podcast together, because I know how powerful it is to tap into our feelings and to connect with what's going on within ourselves so that we can lead our lives full of inner peace and mental calm. This is a really full circle moment for me, y'all. Because as you know, I started this podcast. Well, you may or may not know, I started this podcast in 2018. And when I began this podcast, there was a gap occurring in the conversation around health and wellness surrounding Black women, particularly women of the African diaspora. And I felt that there was an opportunity for us to have honest conversations around what it takes for us to live our lives healthy, happy, joyfully, while at the same time preserving our traditions. And when this podcast first started, That's what it was really focused on. And those of you that have been with me since the beginning, I know some of you listening have been, I missed you. And that's why I'm back. And I'm back in doing things this way. I tend to release podcast episodes in seasons. So this is going to be our 5th season, our season 5 of the podcast. And I made a decision to rename the podcast because I desired to bring myself into alignment with all parts of myself that light me up, bring me joy, and I'm learning to love at a deeper level. And I tend to hide from myself in those spaces because I didn't believe that my story was powerful, or I didn't believe that it mattered, or I started to think that I had to do other things in order to be worthy or good enough. And over the last 6 years that I've been doing this podcast, as many times as it has integrated and integrated, I'm now in a place where I feel very clear on who I am. I feel very grounded in who I'm being. And I am very aligned with the person I desire to be and how I desire to show up. And that's why I'm coming back to y'all in this way. I decided to pause podcasting because I began really focusing on my coaching business. So I started coaching in 2018. So at the end of 2018, I began to coach. And in that process, I'm the type of person that learns to trial and error, y'all. And because I learned to trial and error, I test things and then I try things. And depending on what I learn from those things, I decide how I'm going to move forward. And over the past years, I decided that I was going to focus on learning to be a business owner, learning to have a coaching company. This is a different way than I was raised. This is a different way than I went to a different approach to what I went to school for. So I experienced quite a bit of learning and unlearning in this process. And that led me to make decisions like pausing the podcast and giving myself the space to learn to be a business owner, because being a business owner, those of you that have businesses, you know the vibes. Being a business owner requires that you come to face with who you are, especially if you are an entrepreneur and you are a team of one or army of one, like I am. So it's been really important for me to hold that space because there's quite a lot that I did not realize was present for me until I began to go into business and I took my business seriously. Seriously, in quotation marks, for those of you that are listening and now watching us on YouTube. Oh, yes, this is a video podcast. So if you are desiring to watch the video version of this podcast, I want to encourage you to join me on YouTube, youtube.com/Yenory Pouncil, so that you can watch the video and you can get the full experience of this podcast now. So I decided to take a break because I was learning to be a business owner. And in that process, I enlisted the support of several mentors. And the mentors that I was working with were not focused on podcasting as a key strategy for lead generation. So I did not lean into the podcast because I was learning to quote unquote make money in a different way. And now that I've been through this process and I've grown, I've learned, I've made money, I've come to a place where I realize that what matters most, it really is what lights me up and what brings me joy. And if I am in alignment with that, if I am showing up to my life in a way that brings me joy, in a way that lights my soul on fire, and as you can hear my voice, I'm getting emotional because this is such a powerful moment for me to do this with y'all. When you choose to put your joy first, money's always going to follow because money is an energy. And it vibrates at a frequency that you can choose to amplify. I used to believe that I had to quote unquote make money in order to then have time to do the things that brought me joy. In the last 6 years, I've learned that I do what brings me joy and money comes to me because money doesn't create, money amplifies. The universe does not reward, it reflects. So the moments in my life where I have been experiencing a lack of money is because internally I was experiencing a lack of self love, a lack of self appreciation, a lack of self forgiveness. And in that journey, I now see that what truly matters for money to come my way is to be in alignment with what lights my soul on fire. So here we are. She is back on her podcast vibe. And I am committed to doing this because I love podcasting. I love sharing stories of women of the African diaspora. And I also feel very excited to share my story in a way that perhaps I wasn't available to before. So if you're here with me right now, I want to encourage you to grab a cup of tea or grab a bottle of water. Pull your journal because I'm going to drop some gems for you. It's how I am, it's how I move in the world, it's my gift. And I desire for you to walk away from this conversation feeling like a breath air. No, a breath of fresh air. I'm still foreign. I'm very much getting this sayings. Y'all know I be making up the sayings when I come on here. So let me know in the comments below if you're catching this on YouTube. If you also find yourself mispronouncing the sayings that you learn in the States if you are an immigrant child. I made a list of questions that I wanted to address in this conversation I'm going to have with you. And it's interesting preparing to do a solo episode in this round because I tend to hide behind the guest. This is one of the reasons why when I first did the podcast, I focused heavily on having guests because it gave me an opportunity to have a conversation without leading with my own story. A lot of that had to do with how I felt about myself, how I felt about my story, how I felt about my experience, especially as a daughter of the African diaspora, especially as a daughter of a spiritual leader in my community, as a woman that's learning to take ownership of her traditional practices at a spiritual level. I was experiencing quite a bit of identity crisis with this. And that's why I hide behind the guest or I hid behind the guest. It just allowed me to have the conversation in a way where to me it felt quote unquote safe, even if it meant I was shrinking at times. And this time around, I've made a decision that for the first half of the season, I'm going to focus on having these one on one conversations with you because I desire to share in with you not only my story, I desire to share in with you what it looks like to harness my inner power and what it looks like to take ownership of my well being while I am preserving my traditions as a daughter of the African diaspora. So, if you are meeting for the very first time, my name is Yenory Pouncil. I am a Garifuna. I am an Afro Latina. I was born in Honduras, Central America, and I was raised in the Bronx, New York. And I'm currently living now in Fort Lauderdale, Florida. Now, if you've been listening to the podcast, you probably remember when I was living in St. Petersburg, Florida, which is the last time I dropped an episode on here. And I moved to St. Petersburg, Florida after I was living in Washington, D.C., and I decided to quit my job at the time. And my husband decided to quit his job at the time. And we wanted to move to a place where we can focus on ourselves. Up to that moment, there hadn't really been a time in my life where I felt like I could focus on me. It had always been about getting the education and then getting the apartment and then helping my family and putting other people before me. All of the patterns of behaviors that we learn as daughters of the African diaspora. And it wasn't until 2018 when I decided to walk away from what felt like safety that I began to experience myself in a different way. That I began to hold space for who I was. That when I began to take a look at who am I being? And do I like her? Am I excited for her? Am I looking forward to being this woman? And that gave me an opportunity to get to know myself at a deeper level. Get to know myself at a level that I didn't even realize was available to me because I was so accustomed, I was so used to operating from the expectations, the people pleasing, the analysis paralysis, the attachment to controlling others that I had learned to embody over my life. And that began this journey for me of self discovery, of self knowing, of self ownership that is culminating. I'm going to say culminating. I would say is reaching another point today as I'm doing this conversation with you. And this is why I decided to rename the podcast. The podcast has had a few names throughout the years. It started as the Health Conscious Podcast, and then I shifted to the Get Unstuck podcast, and then I shifted to the Self Trust Podcast, and now it's the Yenory Pouncil Podcast because I acknowledge that I am simply the vessel and the channel for the knowledge to circulate. And it starts with me because I start with me. I don't share anything in the world that I don't practice. I don't share things that I don't apply. As a mentor, I don't teach things that I myself don't do. And it is that ownership of my story, that ownership of who I am, that makes me different. It is the thing that separates me from others. And I desire to lead with that because I am in a place in my life right now where I feel good about it. I feel joyful and I don't feel guilty for it, which is something that I realized that I learned to experience. So that's why we changed the name of the podcast to the Yenory Pouncil Podcast. And the Yenory Pouncil Podcast name is here to stay because that is me being who I am. That is me sharing my story and all parts of my story and doing it in a way that supports not only me, but it supports a future version of myself, that it supports a future version of any daughter of the African diaspora that is in the process of healing. This podcast is truly for women of the African diaspora, my Black sisters, mis reinas, that are committed to putting themselves first, that are committed to loving themselves unconditionally, that are learning to see the parts of them that they may not like, full of compassion, full of grace, and full of love for themselves and for others. This podcast is a love letter. It's a love letter to a part of myself that I have been on a journey to not only love, to appreciate, to be grateful for, to be excited for in a way that I've never experienced before. I've been in the wellness space now for 14 years. And in those 14 years, I've been seeking community, specifically a type of community that will allow me and celebrate me for taking care of myself, a community that's going to celebrate me for putting myself first, for having boundaries, for releasing the energy of people pleasing, for releasing the energy of overthinking, that's going to celebrate me for taking care of my body through movement, that's going to encourage me to show up at a deeper level as the most authentic version of who I am. And it's interesting saying this to y'all, but I haven't quite found that. And in the last few months, I've received guidance from my spirit guides and my ancestors that the reason why I haven't found this community is because it is my community to create. It is my opportunity to gift to the world the very thing that I've been yearning for. Because I truly believe that we teach to others the thing we need the most. And the reason why I'm so grounded in supporting women with putting themselves first and trusting their intuition and having mental calm and inner peace is because that's the thing that I am learning to anchor for myself at a deeper level. For lack of a better term, that's the thing that quote unquote I need the most. So I give it to others because I'm giving it to myself. And I got to the place where I realized that people cannot give me a community that they're not giving to themselves. And that's one thing that I desire for you to walk away from this catch up is that people cannot give you what they don't have. And oftentimes we get frustrated with people because they aren't giving us the thing that we desire, when in reality, they can't give us something they don't got, y'all. And that's why I have been called and encouraged and moved towards this direction so that I can give to you the thing that I give myself and invite you into being a part of that. This podcast is a love letter to women, to Black women, to the daughters of the diaspora, the ones that are loving themselves unconditionally and that are choosing to do this full of mental calm and inner peace, enjoying the journey just as much as the destination. That is who I am. That is what I focus on. And that is what I desire for you to get out of these conversations. And if you know of a daughter of the diaspora that is yearning for that community and is yearning to sit in this type of space, I want to invite you to tell them about this podcast, to tell them about the Yenory Pouncil Podcast, so that they too can experience the transformation that I've experienced. And if you desire to have me walk you through my own process, I'm going to invite you to be a part of the Self Trust Society, which is the space I've been co creating with other amazing, dope women of the African diaspora that are healing and that are loving it and are appreciating it and are giving themselves grace through the process. To join that, you want to go to theselftrustsociety.com, and it's going to give you a breakdown of everything that you'll need to be a part of this conversation with us at an intimate level. Where in the world have you been, Yenory? All right. So last time I dropped an episode, I was living in St. Petersburg, Florida. I moved there after I left DC, launched my business, all of that good stuff. And then around 2020, and during the panini, it's been a while. There was a whole pandemic season. We didn't even talk. During 2020, my husband got a job. He was actually offered a role in Fort Lauderdale, Florida. So we moved during the pandemic from St. Petersburg, Florida to Fort Lauderdale, Florida. Why did we make that decision? Two reasons. Actually, no, one reason. The main reason why we decided to move from St. Pete to Fort Lauderdale and why my husband made the decision to take that role was because we had hit our runway. We had been in business by then by 2 years, almost 2 years, and the money that we had utilized or we had saved to live had run out. I told y'all when I first make that transition that I was living off of my retirement. I'm the type of person that I'm going to bet on me. And so is my husband. He's the same energy. So we made the decision that in order for us to learn what we wanted to be when we grew up, in order for us to explore what kind of businesses we wanted to have, we were going to live off of our retirement. And making a decision meant that we were going to pull that money out. I think at the time we had a little bit over 6 figures between the two of us and utilize those funds to live and to pay our bills and to eat and all the other things. And when you run a business, things don't really move all the time how you want them to move. I don't even think that's just business. It gives me like life energy. And what ended up happening was that we got to a point in the business where we had more money going out than we had money coming in. And that led to us making a decision that one of us was going to have to get a job. And in that time, my husband was the person that got a job. He got a role working for a company, a sports company, and it was something that he was excited about. He loved sports. He was going to be working with one of his friends, and it was a really beautiful opportunity for us to change our scenery, to move to a different city. Y'all know I love to move, and he gave us a chance to give space for the business. So while he took the role, I focus on the business. And that's the type of decisions that my husband and I make. That's the type of things, the ways that we move. And if you have been listening to the podcast, we actually recorded a few episodes talking about that. I'll link them in the show notes for y'all so that you can listen to them and get a feel for what that was like. During that time, we made the decision to move to Florida. We moved here sight unseen because it was during the pandemic. So we couldn't visit the apartment or anything. We literally were like, okay, send us pictures, send us videos, and we picked the place. And it's a really beautiful place. I still live here now. And it's a place that's close to the beach, about 1.5 mile walk from the beach, which very important to me. I love the water. I am a daughter of Yemaya. I'm a daughter of Oshun. So I love being around the river. I love being around the ocean. And I actually have both close to where I live. And this was a decision that at first, I would say, I was really excited about this decision because my old apartment in San Pedro, I don't know if you remember, but your girl was going through it. We were living on the first floor. We had all sorts of animals coming into our apartment, which I didn't know that happened when I moved to Florida. And it was given a little bit of like mental turmoil because we had roaches, and that was just something that I absolutely did not do well with. God put me in there to grow because I was like, Lord, what is happening here? And He really allowed me to see that there was more to the glitz and glamour that I was used to. I still love a glitz and glamour moment. And at the same time, I learned that I could coexist in a different environment, that I could bloom wherever I am planted. And when we decided to move here, I was so happy. I was so grateful. I was ecstatic because in this apartment, there were no roaches. In this apartment, we live in a 6th floor, so there's no really bugs coming in here. And the view is magnificent. And if you remember when I first started this podcast, for those of you that have been here, the OGs, and if you're an OG, go on YouTube and leave me a comment letting me know I am an OG. If you remember, I was living in DC. And when I was living in DC and my uncle was murdered, I was depressed. And I found myself living in this gorgeous apartment and I hated the view. I hated the view of my life. I hated the view of who I was. I hated the view of how I was moving. So the fact that I am now living in a place where not only do I love the view of my life, I also love the view I see outside is a full circle moment for me. And that's where I am. I'm in Florida right now. So if you are ever in Florida, let me know. I would love to connect with you. I would love to kiki and chat with you and see you in person because we outside now, baby. We outside. So let me know if you are ever in town. Send me a message here on you. Drop me a word on YouTube, or you can actually also send me a message on Instagram at Yenory Pouncil. So that's where I'm at right now. And some things have changed. JP is doing well. He actually was laid off last year in August. And that transition was really one that at first was a bit uncomfortable because he had went on vacation and came back from vacation and they were like, all right, you're done. And that was an uncomfortable moment for us because the business still was not in a place where they had taken over financially for our needs in the household and our expenses. And at first I was like, okay, I don't know how we're going to do this. And there was a reason why I was so peaceful and calm. And that's because since I moved to Fort Lauderdale, I've been really allowing myself to open up to my spiritual gifts. You may not know this about me. I have all sorts of delicious spiritual gifts. And I'm actually part of a family that has had generations of spiritual guides and spiritual teachers. And I believe I'm the 5th or 6th generation. Something that I've always kind of kept hidden, something that I thought I kept hidden, something that I had quite a bit of shame around, because growing up in the States is different than growing up in Honduras. So things that are natural, traditional practices for me felt very foreign here. And I really was stretched by allowing myself to express myself in that way out of fear of judgment, fear of how people were going to talk about me. I'm from Honduras. I grew up hearing, ¿Qué va a decir la sociedad? What is society going to say about you? And because I grew up hearing that messaging all the time, I was replaying that in my mind anytime I was desiring to express a part of myself that I perceived people wouldn't like, that I perceived people were going to come for me for. And that's where I was in my spiritual journey. And in 2020, that shifted. And it shifted because at the end of 2019, my mother had a stroke. And when my mother had this stroke, it impacted her drastically. It impacted the part of her brain that dominates and regulates language. And as a result of that, she was not able to continue her practice as a spiritual high priestess. In the Garifuna culture, it's called abuye. She wasn't able to continue her practice as abuye because her cognitive abilities were keeping her from being able to read. So that meant saying her prayers. She wasn't able to do that. Her ability to write also shifted. And as a result, her spiritual team began to transition into a new home. I didn't know it then, but the home was my home. And because of that opportunity and because of my decision to allow myself to grow spiritually, I was able to be grounded when my husband was laid off. Especially because if you didn't notice, your girl is a mom. Your girl has a baby. Yes, y'all, I have a whole child. In 2022, I gave birth to a baby boy. His name is Sage, and he's a ball of energy. He's such a happy soul, and he is super energetic. I think I just said energy twice because he comes with energy and then extra. And it's been really wonderful to step into the role of motherhood, especially because for a long time, I didn't want to have kids. Y'all may remember when I did that episode in the podcast with Tanya Rapley, and she talked about preparing for motherhood after 30. And I shared on that episode that I didn't really know if I wanted to have kids. I didn't really want to have kids because of the parents that I saw around me and the people that I saw raising kids around me and how I was raised. And the most beautiful thing happened to me when I began to dive deeper into my healing, when I began to hold space for my husband to dive deeper into his healing, I realized that I love the idea of being a mother, especially with him. And in 2021, we got pregnant, and this was a very intentional pregnancy. I may do a video or episode for y'all where I break down my process for preparing for pregnancy. I spent about a year and a half in preparation for pregnancy, a year doing womb healing, womb work, a year talking to there's a woman who's a mentor, colleague, friend of mine, doing astrology work to help me clear anything within me that I didn't desire to pass on to my child. I did work with a Reiki practitioner. I went through quite a transformation in preparation for me to get pregnant and then deliver Sage, because I wanted to deliver Sage at a birthing center. I wanted to deliver him in a way that was very chill, relaxed. I didn't want to be pressed. I don't want to be at a hospital. And I did it. I did give birth at a birthing center. I did it on my own terms. I wanted to sit in the energy of my ancestors. I was like, women been doing this since millennia, and I know that I can do this. And I prayed for it, and I was able to do it. So if you are interested in getting a full on episode on what was my journey to pregnancy like, what was my preparation journey like, let me know, and I will put one in motion for you. So that's part of like what I've been up to with JP. We are now parents, and we are focused on a gentle parenting style. Let me tell you something. I didn't grow up with no gentle parenting. And I'm also from the Bronx. I want all the smoke always. It takes quite a bit of intention and attention for me to be the calm, collected, grace giving, grace overflowing person that I am. This is a decision that I make every day because all the time I'm ready for the heat. I am ready. And being a parent that chooses to engage in gentle parenting has truly brought all of those pieces of myself that I didn't even know were there to the surface as a mom. Because I tell my friends, I was a perfect mom until I had a baby. I was the best mom until I had a baby. When you start to have a child, when you have a child, so many things change. And gentle parenting has given me an opportunity not just to support my child in a way that is rooted in love and ownership of himself, in trust of himself. It has also given me an opportunity to reparent myself. It has given an opportunity to heal my own inner child. When I see my son expressing himself in a way that is uncomfortable to me because he's being quote unquote loud and he's not quote unquote listening, or he's quote unquote not being a quote unquote good boy. Anytime Sage is expressing like himself like that, I allow myself, my child version of myself, to be okay, because that version of me wasn't allowed to express herself like that. So the fear of people's reactions comes up for me. And in those moments, I hold space. I allow myself the space to let my inner child be. I give myself the space to let my inner child heal. I give her room to express herself freely, unapologetically, boldly, in a way that I may not have experienced as a kid. So motherhood, as you can see, or as you can tell, has completely upleveled my sense of self-love. It has upleveled my sense of self-forgiveness. It has up-leveled my sense of self-awareness. And it has up-leveled my sense of self-care. It's been an experience that I'm not going to lie to y'all. At the beginning, I was going through it. Since the moment I got pregnant, mind you, like I shared with you, I prayed for this baby. This was a very planned baby. The moment I got pregnant and my body began to change, I was like, what am I signing up for? Because up to when I got pregnant, I was working out twice a day. I was doing running. I was doing tennis. I was dancing. I was like movement, 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 movement. And when I got pregnant, my body required a rest. My body invited me to rest at a level that I simply hadn't been invited to rest before. Excuse me. At a level that until that moment, I didn't know was necessary of me. And I was very stretched by that because I have until that point, I was operating out of a very masculine like energy. So I was willing my way through things. I was pushing myself through things. And when I was pregnant with Sage, my body was like, hey, rest is necessary. Slowly working out twice a day, every day became working out once a day, and then slowly transitioned to working out every other day until it got to the point that I experienced sciatic nerve pain and I did not work out at all because I was that tired. And I joke about it. I was resting with an attitude. I was resting with an attitude because I was like, I need to be out there working out. I need to be there running. I don't feel like I'm not doing anything. That energy really stretched me quite a bit. So if you would like to learn more about that, about what it was like to experience that as in my pregnancy, let me know. We can talk about it in an episode because it was real for your girl. So when I gave birth, that also stretched me. Those of you that are moms, especially first-time moms, you know what I'm talking about. And I'm someone that I'm very blessed because I create situations and I allow myself to experience things that I desire in the way that I desire. So I was overwhelmingly supported throughout my process of pregnancy as well as through my process of giving birth and Sage being here. And even though I was very much supported, I was very stretched, which is something that apparently surprised me. And I'm not even talking to you about the learnings around my body. The body you get pregnant in is different than the body you give birth in. And that brought up quite a bit of insecurities for me around how I feel about myself, around how I feel about my body. If you've been here with me from the beginning, you remember that I had a brand called I Am Healthy Fit, which was focused all on healthy eating, meal prepping, and exercising. So here I am, the woman that was doing that. And now 8 years later, I was having a very difficult time accepting my body, accepting how quote unquote big I got. At my heaviest, I was 193 pounds. And now I'm 154 pounds. So about a 40-pound swing. And it's been a journey to get here. And my favorite part of that journey has been allowing myself to go through this process with love, not rushing, taking my time, not being pressed for, I got to have a bounce back, I got to have a six pack, allowing myself to heal at my own pace. And that's what I know is possible for you too, for all of us, especially those of us that are women of the African diaspora, because when we have kids, we have often been taught to put the kids first. We actually wear that like a badge of honor. And the reality is that we cannot pour onto others from an empty cup. It is the overflow of the cup that goes onto others. What's in the cup is for us. And motherhood was a reminder to me that what's in the cup is for me. And I was having such a challenging time with it that I buried myself in the work. After I had Sage, I was going at 1,000. I locked a 4-part series with Pinterest doing a on boundaries. I did a 4-part series on boundaries because I've been working with Pinterest as a creator. Shout out to Pinterest, y'all. And they've been really supporting me. And after I gave birth to Sage, I agreed to do a 4-part series with them, breaking down boundaries. I went on to like get really hardcore with like my sales. I hit my first six figures in a month in my business. I was going on 1,000 with a baby. And it was because that's just the way I knew to be. So through my pregnancy and giving birth and then raising my child, I've been able to learn to release the pressure to operate at that frequency, release the pressure to hustle, and allow myself to enjoy my life at a deeper level. And I'm really grateful for my mom and my dad because they spent about a month with us after I gave birth. It's interesting, they arrived the day I gave birth in the evening. And I had told Sage, I didn't know that Sage was a boy. I actually waited until I gave birth to find out the gender of my son. And I told him while he was in the womb, because at the birthing center, they were like, talk to your baby like understands, like speak to them. And I told him, hey, I would love for you to arrive before your grandparents get here. That way I can labor peacefully. Because my mom already told me, she's like, I ain't gonna be in there with you when you're laboring, okay? Like, that's not my ministry. That's not the thing I do. I'm gonna love my grandkid. I'm gonna show for my grandkid. Not in that way though. So I talked to the baby and I was like, listen, baby, please come through before your grandparents show up so that you and I can go through this process with ease and with flow. My parents were scheduled to arrive January 17th at 6 p.m. Sage arrived January 17th at 10 a.m. So if you are pregnant and you are desiring to work with your baby, talk to your baby because they are listening and they will work with you. I highly recommend that. And as someone that's a spiritual being, as someone that is focused on preserving traditions, this is something that I felt very connected to and I feel really grateful for because I know that he is also a soul and we are interconnected and we can communicate with each other. And because of that, look at God. Look at how everything came together. Wonderful. So that is my baby. That's my kid. That's what parenting him is like. It is a journey. I'm learning a lot about myself in this journey. Every single stage teaches me something new. Right now, we are about to start potty training. A few weeks ago, he graduated from the crib to the bed. So if you are a first-time mom, when your kid graduates from the crib to the bed, that is going to call for space and grace because their sleep shifts as they adjust themselves to their new sense of freedom. And that means that your sleep is also going to shift because they may find themselves coming into you, to your room. Sage sleeps in a different room than JP and I because your girl be needing the space and loves and appreciates the space. So he has been coming to our room a few times a night to check in, or if he wakes up, he just opens the door. While as before, he will cry and we go to him. So that's been a bit of an adjustment. So if you're a new mom, please know that this is something that's going to show up for you. If you are a mom that is very involved in the spiritual space like I am, be aware that as your child grows, they're going to get used to the energy of the spirits in the house. They already have their own spirit team of guides. So when they are in the house and you are working with your own spirit guides, you're gonna notice that the kids are gonna get used to that energy. It's gonna take a little bit of adjustment for them as well. So that may materialize in the form of crying, in the form of them not sleeping. That's not an issue. It's simply them getting used to the energy in the house. So that's something I wanted to share for my spiritual mamas that might be listening, because that's something that I experienced that nobody told me about. So that is what motherhood has been like. That's what that process has been like for me. What else I wanted to talk to y'all about today? What to expect this year is my next thing. Oh, how's business? Business is great. Business is great because I'm in a place now where I'm very clear on who I am. I'm very clear of what I'm creating. And I'm very excited about having ownership of that. Last year, my business experienced a huge contraction. And that is by design. 2023 in numerology singles out to the number 7. Now, if you are into the spiritual vibes, you are in the right place because I'm about to give you all of it. And if I'm feeling spicy, I may even pull a card for us to see what the energy is like. And also, happy Valentine's Day, because I know that today, as this episode airs, is on Valentine's Day. And I'm deciding to do this because this is a love letter. And in Honduras, Valentine's Day is el Día del Amor y la Amistad. Valentine's Day is the day for love and friendship. And I see this as a beautiful, loving friendship between you and I. And that's why I decided to release this episode on Valentine's Day. That's why I decided to launch season 5 on Valentine's Day, because this is love. It's rooted in love, it's grounded in love, and it is a loving act for both of us. You as someone that's listening, and me as the person that's sharing. And this is a love letter. I love letter not only to you, the present version of you, I love letter to the past version of you, and I love letter to the future version of you, because all of those versions of you are coexisting right now. And that's why I wanted to do this on V-Day, because I wanted to take the spirit and the essence of that day and harness that energy in this podcast. Fun fact, my mom and I used to exchange Valentine's Day cards when I was younger because, again, it wasn't just about romantic love like it is in America. It was about love of all sorts. And that's why I wanted to do this episode today on V-Day, because it's about love, all sorts of love. And what is the most beautiful type of love than the love we give to ourselves? That the love that we allow to pour onto ourselves, and then allow that pouring into ourselves to overflow into others, and to overflow in the most beautiful way. And that's why today is the day where we kick off season 5 of the podcast. With that being said, that's the love with which I've been operating in my business. I've been in business as a full-time mentor since 2018. So 6 years, going on 7 years. And when I went on this path, I had no idea I would be here. I am a trust my intuition woman. Like, I listen to my intuition, and wherever it takes me, that's where we're going. And in that journey, we've gone through a few twists and turns that a version of myself would have seen as ups and downs. And now I see that there are twists and turns in my journey into being the version of myself that I am today. And my business has been a mirror to me in those twists and turns. It has showed me the places where I've been stretched. It has shown me the places that have been the quote unquote easiest. It has shown me the places where growth has been something that I want to anchor myself in, the places where I'm invited to growth. And it has allowed me the opportunity to show up to that with love and with compassion and with kindness. And it's also been an uncomfortable journey. Life is an uncomfortable journey. We don't know when our last day will be on this earth in the physical space. We know that it will occur. We may not know when it's going to occur. And it is the knowing that we don't know when that's going to happen that often can cause a bit of discomfort within us, because we have developed an attachment to want to control things. I develop an attachment to want to control things. The clients I work with develop an attachment to want to control things. And having a business has given me an opportunity to see those attachments and to release them. Since I launched my business, it's gone through a few iterations as well. And now I'm in a place where I'm bringing together all of the gifts that I have cultivated and nourished over the years. And there's been quite a bit that I've learned over the years. If you remember, I am Healthy Fit. I have brought that back into my business. All of the tools I created around meal prepping, I created about healthy eating, the recipes I put together. If you ever had any of my recipes, head to the YouTube channel and in the comments below, let me know which recipe you enjoy the most. I'm bringing all those things back into the forefront. I was telling my girlfriend Kelly, instead of them collecting dust in my Google Drive, they're about to be collecting dollars, because we create with so much intention, especially the women that I attract. We have this desire to put things to the world that are beautiful and impactful. And sometimes it comes from this part of ourselves that as Black women, we can feel like we have to work harder in order to deliver and for people to acknowledge what we are delivering. I know that's been my story at times. And whatever the reason is, she's giving you at a level that is unmatched. Whatever I put out to the world, it's going to be some amazing shit. And when I tend to move on from things, I leave them behind. I don't like to rehash them. And oftentimes that manifests as me not learning or preserving the lessons that I've learned from certain situations. And in my business, I'm in a place now where I am incorporating, I am integrating the version of myself I am today with all the elements of my life that I've learned and grown through over the years. And I'm excited because as part of the Self to Society, I am reintegrating I Am Healthy Fit as a library of resources for my clients that are focused on living their lives in a more joyful and loving way. Because what we eat is so connected to our joy. Food is connected to everything. We eat and drink when we are happy, and we eat and drink when we are sad. And our relationship with food is very intertwined with how we approach ourselves and approach our healing. And when we are able to feed our body food that is nutritious, food that is healthy, food that is grounded for our bodies, we can move through this process with a level of ease and joy that we may not have access before. And because of that, in my business, I am allowing myself permission. I'm giving myself permission to bring it all together. So I'm bringing I Am Healthy Fit back. I'm doing more workout content with my clients, like workout challenges. I am focusing working with only women. There was a period of my career where I was like, I gotta work with everybody. Let me know if you relate to this. I gotta work with everybody. I gotta have everybody be my container. I gotta work with men, with women, black, white, everybody. And it was really this fear of missing out that was leading that charge. Because of the work I've done with my guides and my spiritual team, because of the grounding I've done with myself, I've been able to get clear that my mission are women, specifically women of the African diaspora, because those are the women that I'm like the most. And the things that I've experienced, that I've learned, will serve them the most because they are like me. They're going through the stuff that I'm going through, especially if they are focused on preserving their traditions while they care for themselves. And the clients that I find I have the most amazing time with are the type of clients that are just like me. We are tapping into what people will call our witchy powers. We are trusting our intuition. We are connecting with our ancestors. We are letting our spiritual team guide us and to put us in a position where we are moving with ease and flow because we're not forcing life. We are allowing life to emerge from the depths of the beauty that comes from within. That's a different way of being. And that is the type of business that I'm creating now. I'm not pressed about making money, at least not the way I used to be, because I've made money. And when you make money, you know that making money is not everything. When you make money, you know that making money is not going to quote unquote fix your problems. I told you at the beginning of this, money doesn't create, money amplifies and reflects. So now I'm in a place in my business where I'm really excited about the women I'm working with. I'm clear on how I'm moving. JP is a part of the business. He actually focuses on human design. So if you are into human design, I am a type, I am a generator type, and JP is a generator type as well. Sage is a manifesting generator type. If you don't know what I'm talking about, don't worry about it. This part ain't for you. If you are into, so with human design is a system that helps you work with your energy so that you are harnessing your energy in the best way for you, so that you are making decisions in a way that suits you versus making decisions in a way that suits other people, which is the way that I was operating at first. So now that I know that, I'm showing up differently. I've been aligning myself with human design for about 4 years. And in my business, JP is a human design expert. So he works with our clients to help them understand how to use their energy source in a way that is in alignment with them. So he's still involved. He's involved doing his own thing though, which is amazing because it has allowed me to be clear on what is the identity of the business and to show up to that identity of the business from a position of power and love and grace. There's nothing that I desire more than to support women into moving at their own pace. I don't want you to move at my pace. I want you to move at your own pace. And in the Self Trust Society, which is the container that I have and I've carefully curated for women of the African diaspora, for Black women to celebrate themselves, through self-love, to celebrate themselves through radical responsibility, to celebrate themselves through self-forgiveness, to celebrate themselves by eating food that nourishes their bodies, to celebrate themselves by moving their bodies in ways that help them release energy that is not aligned. And to do all of this with mental calm and inner peace, that is what I am here to do. And there hasn't been a time in my life where I felt as clear on that as I do right now. And that's what my business is about these days. This is what I focus on. And I'm actually enrolling clients right now for the Self Trust Society. And if you want to be a part of that, I want to invite you to go to theselftrustsociety.com so that you can join us. You can join us in the way that fits you best, because there are a few ways that you can enter the space based on where you are and based on what you are focused on. Because everybody different. Everybody's in a different place in their journey. And it doesn't mean that you got to go at it alone. One of my favorite proverbs is, if you want to go far, go. If you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. And I'm here because I desire to go at it together. I desire to co-create magic with women. I desire to co-create magic with the womb of our society, which is me. And it's the other women that I work with. And Black women especially have a very special place in my heart because I am a Black woman. I was born from a Black woman. My grandmother was a Black woman and her mother was a Black woman. If I have another child and it's a girl, I'll be birthing a Black woman. Black women to me are magical. And I desire to be a catalyst for their magic to materialize in a way that lights their soul on fire, in a way that feels really, really good to them. And that's what I'm doing in business right now, y'all. That's my focus. And I'm really excited about that focus because it took a minute to get here. Lots of trial and lots of error. People love to go out there and learn things and they don't like to fail, because failure is actually the error part in trial and error. And it's been my ability to go and learn and test and fail at things that has allowed me to get to this place and to be here with you doing this episode today, sharing what we're going to be looking forward to in the next year. So, like I told you before, the first half of the year, we're going to do solo episodes, just me and you. The second half of the year, I'm going to start inviting guests. The type of guests that I want to bring on the podcast are women of the African diaspora that are embodying showing up to the world unapologetically, authentically, and boldly. Particularly women that are doing this by putting themselves first, by helping heal the collective, and by preserving their traditions as spiritual beings having a human experience. So if there are any women that come to mind, if you are listening and you're like, oh my goodness, Yenory, I would love to come on the podcast, please let me know. Head to the YouTube channel, youtube.com/Yenory Pouncil, and leave me a comment on this episode sharing which women you would like to see on the podcast in the second half of the year. Or you can send me a message on Instagram at Yenory Pouncil with your recommendations. I am very excited to create and co-create with women that are about this life, because I know what it's like to be about this life and it ain't for everybody. And I want to amplify the voices of the women that are dedicating themselves to living their lives in this way and amplifying this energy and amplifying this frequency. So drop in the comments below for me any woman that you would like to recommend for me to have on the podcast. There's a few I already have in mind, and I'm excited to see what other recommendations y'all drop for your girl. And while you are at it, make sure you subscribe to my YouTube channel. It's going to be a place where it's the home of the podcast. I'm going to give you behind the scene content. I'm going to give you affirmations. I'm going to give you all the in-between that your heart can desire between episodes. So make sure that you're subscribed there for that. Let's see what else I wanted to share with y'all. Let's pull a card. I'm going to pull a card for us. I've been studying divination tools. And the divination tool I've been studying the most is the tarot deck. These are tools that are utilized to help us understand the frequency or energies around us. There's a lot of misconceptions around the tarot and how the tarot works. And what I've learned is that the tarot itself is meaningless without you being open to what he has to give you and what he has to share with you. It's about you letting your intuition share with you what is present for you. And when you are aware of the energy around you, when you are aware of the presence around you, you can harness the energy in a way that's rooted in your virtues instead of giving into your vices. Because as you are learning to heal and continuing to heal and doing it in a way that's rooted in unconditional love, there are going to be challenges. There are going to be things you're not going to like. And those things are not there to destroy you. Those things are opportunities and invitations for you to grow and flourish. And what I've learned is that tools like the tarot deck can help us see that energy very, very clearly and lovingly. So I'm going to pull one card for us. I actually do an energy reading in the Self Society 3 times a week so that the members can be clear on what energies are present for them and they can harness the power of that energy. So when I do those readings, it's actually a private podcast I do for them, and it's called Vibe Check. And what I do in Vibe Check is I pull a card and I share with them a question to consider and how to harness the energy of whatever comes up during the reading. So I'm gonna pull a card for us because I feel called to do it, and because a part of me is uncomfortable with it. A part of me is like, what are people gonna be thinking about you pulling a card? And I desire that part of me to know that it's gonna be okay. I desire that part of me to know that this is part of how I choose to move in the world, and that it is okay because he brings me joy, and that's it. So let us put a card, see what the vibes are giving. Ooh. So the card that came up for us today is the Temperance card. If you are looking at us on YouTube, you can see it right now. I'm going to describe the Temperance card for those of you that are not watching this on YouTube. This is a card of an angel, and he has 2 cups and is sort of combining this water between the 2 cups, and is standing on top of, like, on a garden. One of the foot of the angel is in the water and the other foot is on the land. And in the corner of the card, there is a sun who is shining. There's a path, and the angel is wearing a white robe with a square and a triangle inside. And he has this kind of light emanating from around it and these wings that are expanding. That is the Temperance card. And this card is the card number 14. I look at a lot of numerology too, because understanding numbers is a very, very powerful practice when understanding the universe. And it helps us harness the energy when we are aware of what's going on. So the Temperance card is what's called a major arcana card. So in the tarot deck, there are major arcana and minor arcana. Major arcana are energies that are operating in the background, and those tends to be quite intense energies, versus the minor arcana, those are more fleeting energies in comparison to the major arcana energy. And the Temperance card is a major arcana card, it's a major arcana energy. I want to actually hold it up for those of you that are on YouTube so you can watch it, you can look at it, and you can tell me from your intuition what's coming up for you. Listen to your intuition as you look at this card and tell me what comes up for you. How do you interpret this? Tarot reading is very interactive for me. I like people to tap in with themselves because I believe that anyone can read the tarot, and I also believe that every person that reads the tarot can gather a lot of insight from it. Here's the thing to know about the Temperance card. Temperance card is all about allowing yourself to coexist with ease and flow. The angel is tempering this water. If you think about tempering chocolate, it's about getting it to a texture that feels very smooth. It's about getting it to a place where you can utilize it for whatever you're making. And the Temperance card is an embodiment of that when it comes to our lives. So those of you that are here with me right now, this is the frequency you're on. And this tells me that you're currently tempering in your life. You have one foot on the ground and you also have one foot in the water. Water is about emotions. Cups are about emotions in the tarot deck. So this tells me that you're currently going through a process where you're learning to navigate your emotions. And you're learning to navigate these emotions with ease and with flow. And that means that there are moments where you may experience what you may consider to be a high, and there are moments where you may experience what you may consider to be a low. And in those moments, it's important that you are grounding yourself in the knowing that you are going through a process, and that both the highs and lows coexist together. One is not better or worse. Highs and lows are actually twists and turns in your journey of ascension. So when the Temperance card shows up, it lets us know that, hey, we are currently going through a process of change. And of course, this is season 5. And when you single out the number 14, what does it add to? 5. And 5 is a number of change. For my Yoruba baddies, 5 is the number of Oshun. So this is a very beautiful energy because it's wrapped in the divine energy, the feminine divine energy, the energy of allowing things to be versus the masculine energy, which tends to wield and force its way into things. So this is a card that tells me that if you are here, you're currently learning to sit in your divine feminine. You're learning to harness the power of your emotions and do it with compassion and with grace. You're learning to stand in the stability of the ground while also navigate the fluidity of the water and coexisting with those two things. This is a really beautiful way for y'all as you are in the middle of your week, because having gone to the beginning of the week when you were probably like, here's what I want to do, and then seeing where you are beginning to see what edits do I want to make? How do I feel about those edits? How am I showing up to those edits? How do I feel about how things are moving in my life right now? And you are doing it from a position of, I'm okay with where I'm at. I'm moving at my own pace. I'm not pressed. That is a very beautiful energy to be, because it allows you to move from within with love and with compassion. To harness this energy, it's really important for you to reflect. I love journaling. I've been journaling for 20 years at least. My oldest journal is 20 years old. And it's been a really powerful practice for me. So for those of you that are watching this on YouTube, take a look at the card, sit with what I've shared with you, and journal about what comes up for you with the Temperance card. Journal around what are the things that you're currently learning to temper in your life. What are the things that you're learning to navigate in your life with ease, especially when it comes to your emotions? This is a very powerful practice to have, because then you can give yourself the opportunity to see yourself from a different angle. And perspective is everything. I was talking to my clients about this today. Perspective is everything. The perspective that you have becomes your reality. So pay attention to what perspective you have and how you are feeling about that, because the feelings that you have become your reality. And in order for you to ensure that you are amplifying what feels good to you and contracting what doesn't, it's important that you are learning to temper what you see as highs and lows, that you're learning to temper your reactions to situations so that you can respond instead of reacting, and that you're choosing to show up to those moments with kindness and compassion and grace. Okay, this is what I had for you today. Thank you so much for joining me, and I look forward to seeing you in our next episode. This was wonderful. Let me know if you have any questions about this episode in the comments below, especially on our YouTube channel. Make sure that you subscribe over at youtube.com/Yenory Pouncil. And if you're desiring to work with me and to allow me to lead you, allow me to guide you through this process into loving yourself unconditionally and doing it with kindness and compassion and ease and flow, full of mental calm and overflowing with inner peace, head to theselftrustsociety.com to join us. Thank you for joining me, mis amores, and I will see you soon. Hasta luego.